They're gonna kill the love of my life.
David!
If I don't go back to what I was doing.
Our line of work is quite brutal and quite ruthless.
How far would you go for love?
You steal truck, bring it to me. Then you make your money.
Is it dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous!
Nicholas Hoult, Felicity Jones, with Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins.
All this trouble, all this pain, for love.
Collide. Now playing. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. You've reached Venus Unplugged, your virtual heartbreak hotel. This is your host, Llorraine Neithardt, and we are working now with Cinderella's Tale, or Cinderella's Teachings. The purpose of this heartbreak hotel is to start to understand what are the fundamental issues that we are really dealing with, the meaning of heartbreak. We want to change those wounds to wisdom, and we're all susceptible to heartbreak, no matter what form. That's the human condition. And the heart breaks, hopefully, and opens to a greater understanding of what the heck we're doing on this planet and to another. So maybe we can't heal the world, but we certainly can understand our own psyches, our own heart. And the Cinderella tale is a tale of envy. It's a teaching about envy. And envy is a predominant feeling, reaction. Whether we're being envied, we are the envied, or the envier. It's destructive because it disconnects us from the good, whatever that good might be. The good might be an object. The good might be a beloved. The good might be success in something. The good can be something you've earned and can't take it, either because of your fear that you will be envied or because you're actually being envied. It's huge. And it's a very unpleasant subject matter, but necessary. Because in the next number of years, the world is going through huge transformation, and we need to be prepared with the possibility of wisdom or perceiving things in another way, really understanding them. Because through the understanding comes knowledge, through the knowledge comes wisdom, and that is what makes us authentic. Whether it's spiritual wisdom, psychological wisdom, good old common sense, which is probably the highest wisdom that humanity can have. You just see it for what it is. You know what its value is. You don't step back or away from whatever the divine in you is setting up to experience. And in truth, we never know the karma. You know, when people idly say, well, that's your karma. In truth, you don't know, nor do they. That can be a very subtle form of blaming. And also a way that people don't have to feel. Because our inferior function, particularly in America, is feelings. The feelings are what we value in life. The emotions are a reaction. But when we get past the emotion into the feeling, that is a gold mine of consciousness. It's huge. Because once we understand what we value or what we're feeling, we can then deal with it. And we can explain it, and we can understand, and we can become more compassionate and loving human beings to ourselves and therefore to others. So today, I was off last week in Maine, Peaks Island, Maine, studying some mythological astrology with Wendy Ashley and some very, very talented students of hers, and had a great time. And here I am, ready to suck it to you with Cinderella's tale. Now, envying, all right, so that's the person who is the envier, okay? We can be envied. We can be receiving somebody's envy, or we can be the envier, okay? And so what happens, let's say in the case of Cinderella, or in the case of yourself, very often, and I see this, I've been at this for, 33 years now, I've heard a lot of stories and witnessed a lot of suffering and equal transformation, particularly around this subject matter. Because we have to look at it almost sideways. You cannot look envy in the eyes. Like Medusa, you'll just go blind. Okay, that's why they have those charms, the evil eye charms, to protect us. This is known throughout the world. We think we're so intellectual, we're past it, but it's running amok. Much of it is what this envy is what causes so much human destruction. At the heart is envy. This country has more or less, where this person has, I never get. When we start that lament internally, oh, I never get anything. We're in a state of envy. I mean, it may be subtle. It's not archetypal, which is really some nasty stuff. But that's when we're taken over by the archetype, okay? But, the envy is because we can't feel connected to the good. Why is everybody else having a good time? Or I'm working so hard, and why aren't I famous? Or, whatever it might be. If you could acknowledge, wow, I'm filled with envy. Why can't I feel connected to the goodness, and how can I get connected to it? Because that is the fundamental issue of of this energy called envy. Okay. The person, the envier, okay, does not feel that they can have the good, that they can't taste that. They cannot have that for themselves. And because they can't stand that feeling, because it's so unbearably painful, the anguish is so great, they project it on, usually to a familiar person, okay, that person has all the good, meaning it's stolen their good, and that's why. Because you can't bear this. You'll go insane in really strong cases of this, all right? And there's shades, there's 1,000 shades of envy. There's 1,000 shades of green, all right? So what happens when one is envied, okay? So it's really a great temptation for the envied one to deflect the attack of envy by altogether disowning the good that is the target. So we'll be in a situation, and suddenly we start feeling uncomfortable. We don't know what that feeling is. Or even something simple. Somebody's just paying you a compliment, and you'll deflect it. You won't take the good in because of the fear of envy. Or someone will suggest something. I've seen this happen so many times. I see a true talent. Because, if I see it, I see it. If I don't, I don't. I'm known for that one. So I'll suggest that there's a talent there, and they'll go, oh, no, that's my sister or my brother or my Uncle Mo or somebody, right? No, it's your talent. But the terror, the unconscious terror that gets triggered to take that good for yourself and digest it into you and live it and have it and be joyful about it, they can't do. They'll just say, oh, no, that's not mine. That belongs to somebody else. Or, when somebody is attacking them, and again, the attack, somebody can raise an eyebrow, and you can feel attacked, because the intention is you're not allowed to have that, okay? So, when somebody says, oh my God, you have this really great talent, and the person says, oh, no, you can do it too. You know what? No, they can't do it. They can do what they can do, but you have a divine plan. You've been given a divine plan. Now, you need to understand, when you pander to envy, okay, you are denying the divine in you, because the divine has given us all gifts. Now, that gift doesn't make us necessarily famous and rich, but it's truly our talent. And when we're living that, that is the glory, truly, and everything else will come, okay? But when people have a fear of the envy, they'll just say to the attacker, "Oh, no, you can do this," or "Here, you can have this," or, watch who you're overgiving to. There can be a fear of envy in that. Because somewhere unconsciously, the person may be saying, "Oh, but you have everything," and then you feel bad, and it's like, "Oh, I feel bad. What do you feel bad about?" So then you bring more than you're supposed to, you overwhelm, you give, and you're feeding envy. Because the person who's experiencing the envy, it's bottomless. They're like hungry ghosts. Their suffering is so great. So when we refuse the goodness in our life, which very often people do, they'll be praying for something or working really hard for something. Just important, working hard, okay? And then an opportunity comes, but it doesn't come in the way that they perceive it. Then they refuse. Well, you can't really do that, or who do you think you are? Something, or they, we don't do that. We're bankers in the family. We're not actors, actresses. We're not artists. That's their envy. It says you'll do it the way we're doing it, because that's the way it is, and we don't want to have to feel that. It's not logical. People will say, "I don't understand." How can you understand it? It's not logical. But what you can do is you can feel it, and you can make it conscious what you're feeling. It's a feeling of dread. We feel awful. What was that? Ooh, I feel a little slimed. I felt bad. I felt so uncomfortable. Or when you're afraid to tell somebody something terrific, unbelievably good has happened in your life. Or you're foolish enough to tell an envious person about that, and you can hear the toilet flush. They'll just take that and throw it in the toilet, and then you're deflated. And then you think, "Oh, well, maybe it wasn't that good. Yeah, they're probably right. I can't do that. Who do I think I am?" There's endless examples every single day of falling into that trap. So with the Heartbreak Hotel, we want to figure out ways to recover from that, understand it. It's not going to happen easily because this is terrifying to look at, to reflect on. But we must. How are you going to manifest if you can't take in the good and you don't know that? I prayed, I danced, I did all these things, and I didn't manifest. Well, I guarantee you the manifestation was there, but you got too scared to take it in. You couldn't see it in the way, or somebody gobbled it up. So another way is when the envied one says, "Oh, no, that's not mine, that's not my talent," or "I'm no better than you." So this refusal to own the good that belongs to one, indeed, what one may have worked long and hard to reach, is a serious blow aimed at goodness. Goodness is the divine. Goodness is spirit. Even at being itself. So this can attack your being. That's why it feels so awful. If you get hit with an envy attack, a serious one, a malicious one, you're devastated, possibly for months, because it just goes after your soul. And it's usually somebody you know, because envy, it's personal. People will see that, and this could be brooding inside of somebody for a long time, and then one day it just pops out. And man, you'll never be the same. But if you start to understand what it's about and don't run from it and reflect from it and stop being a bliss ninny and saying, "Well, that's negative," or "That's not good," it's not a matter of negative. It's shadow and light. We have to have both. So your denial of this force in humanity, you're contributing. You're hurting your own goodness because you're too terrified to say, excuse me, this belongs to me. Eat your heart out. I don't care what your problem is. This is rightfully mine. Just like Cinderella when she finally gets the chutzpah and gets to the ball. Okay? So those who do not use the talents given to them will lose them altogether. You got it? So those who do not use the talents given to them will lose them altogether. If we're working with our talents, okay, envy may come at you. But keep working with them. They're yours. In truth, it can never be destroyed. Envy can piss on it, okay, but it cannot disconnect you from the goodness and the wisdom and the spirit of your talents unless you say yes to it. When we recognize it and see if envy would just go like, I'm not buying, pedal it someplace else. Okay, I mean, that's after you come out of your coma, because that's what it feels like. And we're terrified. We don't know what we're terrified. Now, on the other hand, the envied one suffers, in turn, suffers the misery and the cowardice, knowing the pain of consciously shrinking from the truth, throwing it away in order to play safe. No, they didn't really mean that. You think they really meant that? Yeah, I think they really meant that. Yes. Did they consciously mean it? No, I don't think so. But people pretty much know down deep, if you're reflective at all, that there's envy. Because they're envying because they feel this incredible hunger, this starvation. They can't connect because, envy and greed are soulmates. And the two of those usually come together. So, this takes a lot of time and a lot of emotional and psychic maturity, which is what we're going for, to start recognizing what this energy is about. When people only want the goodness or only give me good news, you're asking for it. And it's kind of ironic because it's I only want the good, and envy is envious of the good. So you only give them the good, and, there you go. Then you get envied. And you don't understand why it isn't as shiny and as wonderful as you thought, or it isn't the accomplishment. You're not getting the good feeling from the accomplishment because you told somebody who was envious. Or you throw it away because you want to be safe. Well, that's looking boring at the end of your life. This is a great drama, great wisdom. We are all partaking in some great evolution of humanity. We're all playing our parts. We're playing it safe. You're going to dry up and just be suffering. Now, the person who is doing the envying, they feel a deep dread of the good. It's like a morbid. It's just painful, so painful for them to experience the good, because then they feel their own lack of good. Now, that's not true. But that is what they feel cut off, okay? So what happens is they dread the good in such a deep way, and much of the spoiling activity of envy operates to cope with the dread. After all, the envier feels empty of the good and hungers after it ferociously. So the spoiling is like, oh, well, I don't know if that's going to be any good. Or do you really think you could do that? Well, those are spoiling. I mean, constructive criticism goes like, wow, that's kind of interesting. But I also heard, that you need to be a little careful with that person or whatever. But, just like a healthy and loving warning, okay? That's not spoiling. Spoiling is when you feel deflated, Like you're a happy red balloon floating along, having a good time, feeling the goodness, filled up with goodness. And somebody sticks a pin in it. And you're deflated. Just check what that person said to deflate you. So, envy and greed are often experienced together. So in greed, we do not concern ourselves with the fate of the object. Often, we will take substance from it long past its willingness or ability to give. In greed, our intent is to stuff ourselves, not to hurt the object. Any damage done is a mere product. So somebody who's filled with greed, they just want to gobble up what you've got. They don't necessarily want to destroy the soul like envy does. Envy wants to destroy the object of its envy because they've projected all that onto whoever they're envying. So in contrast, envy aims to hurt and spoil the object, just like Medusa. You don't look directly at Medusa. You turn to stone. And so it wants to spoil the person that it has the envy towards. It wants to empty. We see it a lot, like in those beauty pageants. We see it a lot all the time. People are spoiling. There's not an hour that goes by, probably a minute, that we don't see some form of envy and somebody, cowering from it. Because it takes a lot of courage to say, no, you will not disconnect me from the good. That belongs to me. And, anyone and everyone can have that connection. It's all right. But if we feel disconnected from it, we don't know that. So in contrast, envy aims to hurt and spoil the object, to empty it of its good stuff, whether or not we can acquire it. Envy operates by projection. So you can't stop projection. You just can't stop it. It comes up. Now, the reason we have projection is so we can see. So let's say you have some minor envy and you realize, like, oh, whoa, what's that? Okay? You could look at that and say, oh, I can identify that. That's envy. So why am I believing that I can't have that good? I can't have that other person's good, but I can have my own good. Or realizing, which would be huge, to realize that very sorrowful and suffering space, like Cinderella's sisters, that they can't have that, and begin to look at it, and begin to correct that, and begin to claim it. So, envy operates by projection, so it thrusts, it pushes, it projects. If you ever saw it psychically, it's like a 1,000-headed green missile, icky, disgusting green, coming at people and blows them up. Goes right for the soul. Okay? So it's got this spoiling and spiteful and destructive feelings of envy onto the object. That's what it wants to do. It wants to spoil it. So don't underestimate that. And you can't make that good. The only way it can be transformed is by recognizing the intention, having compassion. That's after you get up off the floor. First you heal yourself, then you can heal others. Okay? And eventually, when we can admit our terror of being envied and therefore we hold ourselves back, we can then have compassion for what the envier feels. Because what they're feeling, just like Cinderella, she's sitting in the ashes, which she embodies human misery. But she is the essence of inner and outer nobility, okay? But the stepsisters, no matter how much they have, that's why it's so illogical, because people say, but they have so much. They couldn't possibly envy me. Oh, yes, they can. It's not logical. Okay. So the envier feels that they're living on the scraps of life. They're feeling as they do that no one ever gives them anything, that others always get more, others are to blame, and then must pay for it. That's what's going on internally. It's not externally. You can look and say, that person has everything. There's nothing about me. Once again, I see it happen again and again, and when the person's saying, yeah, but I have nothing, I see them as Cinderella sitting in the ashes, having no idea of the good that they have and the connection, because they have spent a life being a target for enviers. So the classical personification of envy is as a hater of others' joy or prosperity. Worst of all, confidence in spirituality or any truth can be found in words. So, wake up. When we choose to become conscious, when we choose to become spiritual or wise, for me, or just deeply, profoundly human, that triggers off people's envy. Believe me, I learned the hard way with that one. It's like, who do you think you are? And all that stuff. Because you're claiming that there's great good in the world, there's holiness in the world, and that you have confidence or faith. People who have faith are envied because it's an invisible force. You don't even know why you have faith. You just know. You know that you know, but you don't know how you know. Now, for somebody who doesn't have faith, that's enviable. Don't underestimate it. Not negative. When people refuse to see and only want the positive, they are bringing this stuff to them. Okay? So the mere, holding of principles of faith is enough to gain an envious attack. Envy attacks, envy denies, it disembowels, it removes important parts of something. It just goes right after. A lot of times people get stomach aches. Don't feel good. Need to leave. So the person who's feeling this awful, I don't know if you know the word schadenfreude. Schadenfreude means envy of the person's good. That they actually hate the goodness that has come into your life. And they want to see it spoiled. And they try their best. It can be very subtle, as I said. Can somebody go tisk-tisk or raise an eyebrow? But you feel the intention. And envy is as powerful as it is as long as it's a secret. When we recognize what it is, we may be powerless in that moment because we're stunned, okay? But when we name it, we can deal with it. It can't take us over. It's when it stays in its secret form, it attacks and destroys and then goes on. And you're left in a pile of ashes like Cinderella. What the hell did Cinderella ever do? It was her constant connection to the beauty, to the task, to whatever she was doing. And she knew somewhere she had this connection to her dead mother and the spirit of the godmother, the godmother, okay? Feels that connection. And the sisters just killed her for that. So these kind of attempts, this hungry emptiness of envy is mixed in with this feeling that these people have, okay? Because they're just suffering. So in the envier's experience of being persecuted by the good, too much to bear, more than I can stand, Cinderella. Who do you think you are? You're not going. You'll never have this. Now I got 90 seconds. So the queen tells me I got to bounce. You don't hear it, but she tells me I got 90 seconds. So one envies the good in the other. One wants to spoil it because it originates outside of oneself and remains outside of one's control. So out of envy, one tries to steal the good, and the only possible way to possess it and yet keep it at a safe distance. One persecutes the good because one cannot take it in. But this way, one nevertheless goes on being involved with the good. So it's a strange connection to try to help people connect. The envier wants to feel connected, can take it but can't take it in. Hungry, starving, wants to just take that in but can't. but it stays connected. So consciousness is the answer. Don't forget to like me on Facebook and go to my website, and I've got a blog trying to happen here, and call for appointments and do all those fabulous good things. And we'll continue, because this is a very powerful subject matter that I want out of the closet and into your consciousness, so you can begin to see and not fall for it. Not fall for the trickery of envy. Yippee! Bye.
Snap 'em, zap 'em, hold 'em, trap 'em. Mice, rats, or other rodents causing you grief? Get rid of 'em. Victor has the broadest, most innovative line of rodent and insect control products on the market. From our iconic snap traps with the big red Victor V to new products like Victor Holdfast, your mouse, rat, and insect problems are a thing of the past. There's a reason people have trusted Victor to get rid of pests for nearly 120 years. Because with Victor, it's done. Available at Walmart. 120 years. Because with Victor, it's done. Available at Walmart. 120 years. Because with Victor,